Hello, everyone. It is day 3 of the Power Skills Masterclass, and I am super excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to be diving into the adaptability quotient. And I alluded yesterday to the fact that today's topic is considered in many circles to be more important than emotional intelligence that we discussed yesterday. So listen in, really pay attention. And as I'm always saying to you, really pay attention to what your inner voice is saying when you hear me talk about this today, okay? Because as I have said every single day, it is what's happening between our ears, it's our mindset, it's that inner voice that is really foundational to being able to get to the transformation that we want in life. So really pay attention to what's coming up for you. I am Angela W. Stillwell, CEO and founder of Untapped Strengths, and we work with individuals to transform them into top 1% leaders and teams into powerhouses. And one of the things that we really work on is this adaptability aspect, the adaptability quotient. And I'm wearing my glasses today because I have a bunch of notes here in front of me. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything for you. So I'm going to be looking down at my notes and so just bear with me as we get through this today. All right. So resiliency, IQ, EQ, AQ, the importance of each. IQ has already been shown in many, many studies to just be want. Yeah. Okay. There's the people who have a really high IQ. I think they just tried to choke me or something. So pause, breathe. All right. So IQ, EQ, and AQ. EQ we talked about yesterday. That's the emotional intelligence. And today we're diving into the AQ. So adaptability is really being shown to be the key to success. In today's environment, things are shifting so rapidly that if you're not able to adapt, if you're not resilient, then you're going to quickly be left behind. All right. So what's the difference between resiliency and adaptability? When you look up those two words, there's a slight difference in the definition. Resiliency is known as the ability to bounce back from a situation, the ability to bounce back. And adaptability is to shift in different situations and in difficult situations and make something good from it. So resiliency and adaptability to me work hand in hand. And when you read articles about it or you read the studies that have been coming out, they've been using the two words, not necessarily interchangeably, but AQ is considered to be the adaptability quotient or the resiliency quotient. So if you hear me use both of those terms, that's why. It's an incredibly in-depth topic. I usually, when I'm working with corporations or organizations and doing training on this in person or virtually, it's a full day training. There's a lot that goes into this whole aspect of adaptability and resiliency. There's a lot of hands-on exercises and that sort of thing. So we're going to get through as much as we can today in as short a period of time as we can. And get your pens ready, pay attention. Let's dive further in. All right. So when you are looking at today's environment, there's lots of change, there's growth, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it is resiliency that gets you through all of that. Carol Dweck wrote a book, and I'm trying to remember the name of her book. It was Mindset. I can't remember the name of the book, but in there, she talks about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And a growth mindset is focused on abundance. It's always looking at the opportunity, looking at how one can expand, versus a fixed mindset is coming from a place of scarcity, limitations, right? And so when you are in this environment like we're in right now, where there's so much change, so much growth, so much volatility, so much uncertainty, having a growth mindset coming from a place of abundance helps keep you out of operating from a place of fear. And the our brains, there's this whole topic around neuroplasticity and neural pathways, and I use a lot of that with my clients, helping write new neural pathways. That's really what is foundational to being able to make the transformations that my clients make. It's about the neuroplasticity of the brain. And what that means is that your brain, you actually can rewrite neural pathways. And neural pathways are beliefs that one has developed over time based on thoughts and emotions that get repeated over time. And without getting into all of the nitty gritty, just know that you can actually reframe your brain. All right. You can reframe your brain. You can come up with new thoughts and beliefs that better support where you're wanting to go. Now, doing that by yourself, not an easy task. Absolutely not an easy task. And it can be done. Having the right coach, having the right guide, having the right materials and the right process to do that, and having someone who can help you see where your blind spots are is crucial. All right. It's super crucial when you are really in the process of making major transformations. Whether that transformation is, I want to build muscle and lose fat, go hire a trainer, right? Or purchase a program that will help you stay focused, right? So it's making sure that you have someone who can see your blind spots or see the places where you're stuck, help you get out of those places, and then write new neural pathways. The U.S. Army War College has something, a process that they call VUCA, VUCA, and we're going to dive a little bit into that today because it's very much around this whole volatility, uncertainty, and how one can adapt in that environment. So VUCA, the V is volatility, U is uncertainty, C is complexity, and A is ambiguous. So the volatility is, it's the nature of things. Nature changes. There's a speed about it, right? It is magnetic. It is always, there's a large volume of, this whole shift in the world, in nature. It's just the way that life is. There's a lot of volatility in life, right? Uncertainty, surprises, right? The unknown. Anybody experiencing any of that lately over the last few years? A lot of it, right? Complexity. We have a lot of complexity going on these days. In fact, if you think about one of the things that's been in the headlines so much recently is artificial intelligence, AI. Well, according to some of the numbers that are being run, by the year 2030, 326 million jobs will be replaced by artificial intelligence. 326 million jobs be replaced by artificial intelligence. Now, there's some question as to what that really looks like. Will those people be out of a job, or will artificial intelligence just do certain roles and then you still have the humans doing it? Regardless of what it means ultimately big changes on the horizon and in a very short period of time. We're already seeing it so much all around us. Over the last couple of months, it has exploded in the way that it's being used. So then there's the ambiguity, the ambiguous. There's a lack of clarity and a lot of unknown, right? So when you're operating in this whole VUCA world of the U.S. Army War College, what they do is, from the V standpoint, you want to develop a vision and an action plan to deal with the volatility. With the uncertainty, you gain understanding and perspective so that decisions can be made, shifts can be made. With complexity, you look for clarity and you communicate, right? So with the ambiguity, agility in decision making and innovation is key. Now, in all of this, fears and behaviors are going to come up like crazy because that's how our brains work. Anytime there is change, your brain sees that as something to be afraid of. Every time there is change, because it's coming from the unfamiliar, because it's coming from a place that is outside of the norm, your brain sees that as something dangerous. And all your brain is wired to do is to keep you safe. It's not wired for you to succeed. It's not wired for you to thrive. It is wired to keep you safe. It's had the same operating system since when cavemen were running around, running from saber-toothed tigers. It's the same operating system. It's the same little part of the brain. It's the amygdala, and that drives 90+% of every decision you make, action you take, and result that you get. So it's crucial. It's crucial. I keep repeating over and over and over how important it is for you to hear what your brain is saying. What are the voices in your head saying in every situation that you're in? Ever been through a breakup? What did you say about yourself? Did you call yourself stupid? Did you call yourself an idiot? Did you call yourself, what were you saying about yourself? Look, the more often you do that, neural pathways get written, because neural pathways that become automations, that become habits, that become thoughts that your decisions, actions, and results are based on those repetitive things that you do over and over and over. And it's to conserve energy. All right. There's a quick lesson in how your brain operates. So when you are operating from this place of fear and these behaviors, the realities of change and the resistance that comes up, it's all natural. It's all natural, and it's okay. What's not okay is to avoid it. Avoiding it will do nothing for you. Sticking your head in the sand will leave you nowhere except with sand up your nose and you can't see and that sort of thing. It is important that you lean in, right? So when you're dealing with these fears, then these fears are going to trigger emotional responses. They just are. So when you can get ahead of that, when you can actually go, oh, you know what? This is how I have responded to this type situation in the past. And here's what I want to do going forward. I want to make a change in this. And so over time, you can do that. Over time, you absolutely can make that shift. So when you're operating from your fears, do you think you're making great decisions? No. No, you are not. No, you are not. If you are operating from fear, you are not making good decisions. What you get to do is gain clarity so that you can make a better decision, right? So when you're operating from your heels, right? Operate from back here as opposed to leaning in. One of my coaches refers to it as being a business athlete. I've been an athlete pretty much my whole life. I played competitive tennis. I've ridden horses. I've ran road races. I've done all sorts of things. And you know, when you are playing a sport, you lean in. You do not get back on your heels. I've also done martial arts. You get back on your heels in martial arts, you're going to get hurt. You lean in. You do not operate from on your heels. So when you start leaning in, that's where transformation starts. That's where your brain starts changing, right? You start consciously making a decision to lean in. Yes, there is some of that muscle memory that has you lean in. If you have been kind of a fearless person and you're a fighter and you really go after life, you're probably going to lean in a little easier. That's just the way it operates, right? But if you're someone who is more timid, you get to learn to lean in. You get to learn to lean in. It doesn't mean that you shift everything about your way of being. Just learn to lean in a little bit, right? So when fears come up and they trigger the emotional response, then you have stories and beliefs that all come up and then impact how you make your decisions. Remember, I said 90+% of every decision you make, action you take, and result that you get is based on the thoughts and beliefs that you have running through your brain all the time. So what are you saying about the situation? What are you making it mean? Is it the truth? Really listen in. Is it the truth? Is that whatever it is that you're saying is happening? Is it truly happening like right now? The vast majority of the time, it's not. The vast majority of the time, fear and anxiety is about something that is happening way out in the future, perhaps. Not necessarily ever going to happen. And yet we make decisions based on that future-based anxiety and fear. Why? Yes, there are times when we get to do planning and try to make adjustments based on what ifs. However, there's a difference in what if planning versus fear-based decision making. Okay. All right. So there are different types of changes. There's developmental, and developmental changes are usually pretty subtle, right? It's just, this is developing. It's just going to be a little change over time. But then there's transitional changes. Transitional are more moderate, right? That's picking it up, building more. You're transitioning into something new. And then you get to transformational changes. Those are radical. Those are big, big, big changes. Big changes. And with those, when you are you fearful about it? Are you leaning in? How are you handling the transformation? Because look, we're all going to transform in some form or fashion. Every day you get older, it's a transformation. Get married, have children, get a new job, move to a new city. All of those things are transformations. Now, do you transform with it, because of it, or in spite of it? Because change is happening all the time. So are you transforming with the change, because of the change, or in spite of the change? You get to choose, or someone else will. When you lean in and you really pay attention to what you've been saying subconsciously, it allows you to be a bigger part of that decision making. Okay. Then you get to live into your dreams, your visions, your goals, right? And then when you look at the culture of things, what is the direction and the goals, right? What about communication during transitions, during transformations? What about decision making and the ability to lead? All of these are impacted by transformations. So when there is radical change, when radical change increases, guess what else increases? Fear and resistance. Fear and resistance. So when you operate from a place of abundance, and you have these radical changes happening, then it's a change maker, because you are taking the reins, you are driving the bus, you are taking responsibility. And all of those are choices. What is the choice you're making? So when you're thinking about changes and the choices that you're making, there's a quote by T.S. Eliot that I love, and it can get a little convoluted, so I'm going to read it and repeat it. It's not a very long quote. What we call the beginning is often the end. And to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. What we call the beginning is often the end. And to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. All right. So what is the end that you are wanting? What does that look like? Start with that in mind. Work your way backwards. Okay? So when you're making these plans and things don't go as you want them to or as you believed they should, then understand there's going to be a grief process. And grief is also part of adaptability and resiliency. There's 3 different types of grief. People often think of grief as just losing someone, right? Death. And grief obviously go hand in hand. And yet we actually have grief in so many scenarios. Loss of relationship, loss of job, loss of health, loss of you name it, right? So there are 3 different types of grief. There's the loss, right? The loss itself, grieving that loss. What about the things that you wanted that you didn't get? You grieve those. We grieve those, the things we wanted and we didn't get. Or what about the things that we got and we didn't want? We grieve those also. So understand the grief process is going to look different based on the scenario. And yet there's a cycle that you go through. And it's called the Kubler-Ross changes cycle. Used to be called the grief cycle. It's actually it's often referred to now as the changes cycle, because anytime you have changes in life, there is grief around it. And in the cycle, the various steps are shock, disbelief, fear or blame, depression. Okay. Shock, disbelief, fear, blame, depression, self-doubt, experiment, acceptance, decision-making, and adapting and integrating. And you can find yourself in any of those places at any time. Often people will skip like the initial shock and disbelief because they just skip right over it and they go right into, okay, put my blinders on and doing what I have to do. And then at some point down the road, something happens and it triggers that shock and disbelief. It triggers that depression or that fear because it hasn't already been dealt with. And even if it has been dealt with, it can come back up if there is a new scenario. So understand that when we are going through all of these transitions and transformations that are happening right now in the world, in your life, my life, everyone's life, there's tons of transformations that are happening. Grief is going to be part of the process, and you can end up in any of those places. So what do you get to do? To be able to be adaptable and resilient in that place, you get to communicate and you get to build rapport. You get to communicate and you get to build rapport. And listen, I didn't learn this until much later in life. And the reason is, as a kid, I moved around all the time. Not just me, my whole family moved around all the time. We did 60 plus moves, 60 plus moves. I went to 13 different schools between kindergarten and my senior year of high school. And some of those schools I went to for more than a year. So you can see there were times when I was moving in the middle of the year. One time I moved when there were only 6 weeks left. So I didn't understand how to communicate any of this stuff. I just did what I had to do. I leaned in. And so that whole process of grief and all of that didn't hit until later in life. It impacted me later in life. So, it's, and the rapport building, gosh, I really didn't know how to do that. I did not know how to build connections with people because I didn't think I was going to be anywhere long enough to have to build that relationship with people. And it was later in life when I was married and we started having issues that I realized what an issue it was for me to not be able to communicate, to not be able to build that rapport, to not be able to have that connection with people. And my marriage ended up in a divorce. And as I was going through the divorce, I was looking at what I did or didn't do right or wrong, what I did or didn't do wrong, right? I couldn't impact what my ex did or didn't do, but I could impact what I did, what I do going forward, so that I wasn't repeating the pattern. Because so often what we do is we just repeat the pattern over and over and over instead of focusing in on figuring out what it is that we get to transform. Transformation is not easy. It's not easy. It can be done, though. It takes a lot of work. I am not going to kid you. It takes a lot of work to really be able to get in and hear what those inner voices are and really pay attention to the beliefs that we have that are impacting everything that we do every day. Remember, 90+% of every decision you make, action you take, and result that you get is due to the thoughts and beliefs that you have. That's a lot. That's a lot. So if you're not liking where you are right now, it's based on the beliefs and the habits that you've built as a result of those. In fact, there's a quote over here. I've read it before. I'm going to read it right now. Well, there's a couple of them. There's one, both of them are in the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And one of them says, habits often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold and unlock a new level of performance. Until you cross a new threshold. For me, that was going through my divorce. And I was thinking, what do I do next? I'd crossed thresholds in business before and was able to make those. And yet, what I realized when I was going through the divorce was that even though I had been successful in business, I still hadn't reached the level that I knew I could because of these things that were holding me back, right? The other quote by James Clear out of his Atomic Habits: your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. You get what you repeat. So how resilient are you? Are you repeating over and over and over the same thing, ending up with the same result? Or are you adaptable? Are you resilient and able to make shifts and make changes in those habits that are going to be most crucial to you transforming in a positive way, because it's a transformation you have chosen, not one that's chosen for you? Let me repeat that. Are you leaning in to a transformation that you have chosen versus one that's been chosen for you? Yeah, I went there. So that resiliency muscle, how do you build it? How do you build this adaptability muscle? Well, it starts with one of the ways is mindfulness. So mindfulness is not mindset mastery. It's mindfulness is being aware of what's happening inside your head. Just being aware, mindful of what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're being, right? Be, do, have, as opposed to do, have, be. Be, do, have. How are you being so that you can do and then eventually have? That's the proper order. It's not do, have, be. I don't do these things so that I can have these things so that I can be this. Start being now so that you can do what's needed so that you can have what you want, right? So the mindfulness is being aware of all of that. And then there's acceptance. Are you accepting what has happened, not laying down and taking it? Are you accepting what's happened and then taking responsibility to make the shift for the transformation? So acceptance and responsibility. Optimism. You guys, I'm going to lean into optimism over and over and over during these power skills conversations that we're having. Optimism It's not about, some people are talking about toxic positivity. I'm not talking toxic positivity. I am talking about being optimistic, knowing that there is another option, knowing that, okay, I can be adaptable. I can be resilient. I can get to that next level. I can. I will. I am. Right? Sense of humor. You guys, a sense of humor is so important. It's so important. I am well known for being an inappropriate laugher. I just am. As a kid, laughter was one of the ways that I got through so much of the stuff that I had to go through as a kid. I mean, it just was. And so I find humor in all sorts of things. People have gotten angry before with some of the things that I have found humorous, and I'm okay with that. Optimism, though, optimism in a sense of humor. Look, humor and laughter produce feel-good hormones. If you're producing feel-good hormones as opposed to stress hormones, guess what happens? Your body reacts better. If you're operating from a place of anxiety and fear, you're increasing cortisol, you're reducing your feel-good hormones, which means you're operating from that place of fear and anxiety and bad neurochemicals. You get to make the shift. You can make the shift. So that sense of humor allows for that. It helps with that. Self-care and empathy. Self-care, there's a lot of ways to do self-care. A lot of ways. It looks different for every person. I've written a post about it recently, a few weeks ago. It looks different for everybody. For me, like this past weekend, one of the things I did a massage. I did a couple of really long walks. I did a 13-ish mile bike ride. And all of that was to help me be able to get my brain to zero in, to focus, to operate at a level that I needed it to operate. Okay. So, whatever self-care looks like for you. And when I say self-care, I'm not talking about numbing. I'm not talking about numbing activities. Okay. A glass of wine can be self-care. A bottle of wine, not so much. Right? So be cognizant of what you're using for self-care. Is it truly self-care or is it numbing? Right? That and just about anything can be taken to an extreme and become a numbing mechanism as opposed to a self-care mechanism. You can work out too much, so it becomes numbing. You're numbing yourself with the endorphins and the adrenaline and that sort of stuff. It's the exact same thing. Working out so that you are improving your health, different issue. Big advocate of working out to improve your health. Working out to numb, not so much. All right. Because when you work out to numb, you're also increasing your cortisol and the bad hormones. So anyway, I can dive deep into all of that. The empathy aspect, empathy for yourself, empathy for others, really understanding this is not sympathy. I'm talking empathy, being able to feel, right? An emotional intelligence aspect, being able to feel for people. And in a team resiliency environment, there's a lot of the same things. There's connection and building connections and building meaning and acceptance. And is there control or no control? Who's influencing who, right? All of those things also impact team resiliency. So yeah, there's individual adaptability and resiliency, and it also happens in team environments. And a team could be a work team, a team could be a family, a team could be all sorts of things. And if it's a team environment, building connection, finding meaning, coming through it with acceptance, not laying down and taking it, accepting responsibility, and then making adjustments. Control, what do you have control over? What do you don't have control over? Release what you don't have control over. Accept it. Take responsibility for how you respond to what you don't have control over. Okay? And then influence. Then there's also being proactive, optimism, well-being, use of humor, and fun activities. All of those are also part of being resilient as a team. So connection, meaning, acceptance, control or no control, influence, being proactive, being optimistic, looking at well-being, use of humor, and fun activities. Okay. All right. So the last thing that I want to touch on is the 7 elements of well-being. All right. The 7 elements of well-being. If you've never done a wheel of life exercise is something that I take clients through. And by the way, if you sign up, you're going to get some bonus materials in a portal that's going to be in addition to these videos. You're going to get the replays, but for signing up, the replays will come down at the end of this masterclass, not today, next week. And but if you've signed up, then you will get all of the recordings and you will get the bonus materials. You can get signed up by going to the link tree that's on the screen. It's linktree/AW Stillwell, linktr.ee/AW Stillwell, AWSTILLWELL. So make sure that you get signed up so that you can get access to the bonus materials and these recordings. All right. So the 7 elements of well-being. If you've ever done a wheel of life, there's usually 5 to 10 or more sections on a wheel of life, and you measure yourself 1 to 7, 1 to 10, however the wheel of life is set up, right? So the 7 main areas, though, are physical, career, social, spiritual, financial, community, and emotional. Physical, career, social, spiritual, financial, community, and emotional. How would you score yourself in each of those? And what comes up for you? What are you saying about it? What are you making it mean based on whatever your score is? Look, being resilient and adaptable means leaning in, knowing where you are from a well-being standpoint so that you can make adjustments and so that you can choose your transformation, right? All right. So that is the workshop today on resiliency, adaptability, AQ, adaptability quotient, resiliency quotient. We will be back tomorrow at the same time on all of the different platforms that we're on today. I think we're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. I can't remember where else we are. But I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you have any questions or need anything, please feel free to leave a comment or send a DM. And if you have anything that you're wanting me to dive deeper into or anything that you would like to request in this series, feel free to put it in the comments or send me a DM. I look forward to hearing from you. And make sure that you get signed up for these recordings, for the long-term access of the recordings and for the bonus materials that you'll get on the backside. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Bye.